So I got a story. A few weeks ago, I was midway through a 2-hour drive to my mom's house so I could visit her for her birthday. While the trip is pretty straightforward, I occasionally stop at this, pawn shop? I'm not sure what to call it really. They sell everything from video games to DVDs to military garbs to every kind of weapon you can think of. There are clear fakes in there, but I'm pretty sure there's some real ones mixed in if the price is anything to go by. Anyway, I was walking around checking out what they had when I found this. A blue art book with a red and white pentagram on it, framing a cavalcade of more than familiar creatures. This book was Digital Devil Apocalypse, one of Kazuma Kaneko's many art books, yet one that isn't often talked about. Seeing as it was being sold for $25, I immediately jumped on it and knew I had to make a video on this thing. When it comes to Mega 10 art books, the most famous would easily be the Kazuma Kaneko Works series. What makes DDA different from those, as well as other Kaneko art books, is that while those tended to focus on specific games, what we have here is more of a sampler of every major Atlus release of the 90s. SMT 1, 2, If, Devil Summoner Soul Hackers, Megami Ibon Roku Persona, Persona 2 Innocent Sin, and they even threw in Macca X as a bonus. To start off, I really love the exterior here. Everything you see inside the pentagram isn't actually on the cover. Rather, you're looking through the pentagram at this massive double-page spread filled with characters from every game featured in the book. From just a glance, I'm able to make out Maya, Namisa, Tatsuya, Metatron, Mishaguji, the Devil Summoner version of Pixie, Igor, Cerberus, Mothman, Maki, Reiji, and of course, dead center of the pentagram, Jack Frost. This collage is done entirely in red and reflective silver, which is super cool to look at. However, both the first and last couple of pages in the book are done in this style, and while it's neat at first, it kind of becomes a headache to look at. I love this film negative style, but the second it switches from the glossy cover to matte cardstock, everything in silver just blends together and it becomes a serious eyesore. Now, this book is broken up into a couple of different sections. The first part, Genesis, starts off with a timeline of Mega 10 games that Kaneko worked on. This timeline is then surrounded by photos of his workstation, and it's so cool seeing how this man worked. However, it's really funny to see what's actually on his desk. A host of nature-made vitamins, a lighter shaped like a gun, a very full ashtray filled with cigarettes that look like you could still get plenty of use out of, and of course, an afro. Getting into the artwork, all of it is gorgeously rendered on glossy photo stock. While I have seen a lot of this art before, seeing them like this makes it feel like I've gained a whole new perspective. It's just so clean and high quality that I may as well be seeing it for the first time. On the other hand, there's also a number of things in here that I have never seen before. For instance, I have never seen these two Megami Ibon Roku Persona pieces before. At least I don't think I have. While it's not super long, Genesis can be seen as a kind of time-lapse of Kaneko's art style. We start with his work on the Super Famicom SMT trilogy, and then watch it evolve into his more iconic look that we know him for today. Of these games, I really have to highlight the Devil Summoner art as being the most alive. It's easily the most fun and playful while never losing that cool edge. It really makes me wish there was a good way to play this game in English. That playfulness then carries over into Soul Hackers, which is where we start to see some of that Kaneko porcelain doll style that would define the PS2 era creep in. More emphasis is placed on black eyeliner and eyelashes, contrasting with cold, stark, pale skin tones. Following that, we jump back a year to the original release of Megami Ibon Roku Persona. I always loved the original cover for P1. The blues and whites make it feel like the boy with earring is coldly staring into an iceberg, only to have his reflection split and warped, coming face to face with his shadow. Well, not technically his shadow, that term didn't exist until P2, but you know what I mean. I also really love this sketch of the main cast where everyone has a single piece of clothing colored in, emphasizing a key piece of their design and associating them with a specific color. Finally, we end off with Persona 2 Innocent Sin, bringing us into that previously mentioned iconic art style. Following Genesis comes Pandemonium, which is made up of a series of interviews with Kaneko about his design philosophy and process, accompanied by artwork of his many demons. There is a lot to talk about here, too much to go over in a simple overview video like this one, but I will include a link in the description to a blog post that translates everything. Give it a read because it's really fascinating seeing how this man approaches the creation of these beloved creatures. Just to give you a little taste, something I never realized until reading this interview is that, outside of a few exceptions, Kaneko tends to design the main gods of each mythology and religion with human forms. He does this because these gods are typically the manifestation of natural disasters and phenomena people struggle to understand for a long time. Lightning, death, the ocean, and so on. Because of this, they can be difficult to interpret. While Kaneko did once design Zeus as a ball of lightning, he came away from that experience thinking that the human form is the best way to express such concepts. These gods existed to explain the then unexplainable, to humanize the scary and unfamiliar. Making these gods look human conveys that same feeling of being able to understand these aspects of life and nature. Next up is Assiah, which focuses on his character design work with comments on the various casts. Unlike Genesis, however, this section actually starts off with his art for Megami Tensei 1 and 2, specifically the remake Kyu-Yaku Megami Tensei on the Super Famicom. Towards the end of this section is where we get a look at Kaneko's work on Macca X. I would really love to check this game out someday. I've never heard great things, but everything I've seen just looks so cool and interesting. An original game from the team behind the 90s era of Megaten sounds like it has a ton of potential, and I want to see for myself why it apparently doesn't work. Not to mention, a number of these designs are some of the rawest things I've ever seen come out of Kaneko. Hey look, a JoJo reference. Finally, we have Chaos. Chaos is a sort of grab bag of various pieces Kaneko has made that doesn't really fit in with any of the other sections. My favorite page here is the one showcasing a bunch of Jack Frost and Pyrojack art. Thinking about life next to some flowers. Sitting next to a surfboard and melting a little on the beach. Foreshadowing Snowboard Kid's DS. Struggling to light a lantern. Playing Keep the Sweets Away from your dear old brother. We all love the Jack Bros, and I love to see them just hanging out and having fun. Also, Pyrojack has feet. Next to the boys are a few photos of Kaneko, as well as artwork based on various movies. Poltergeist, Men in Black, The Shining. There's even an alternate Mothman design in here. Kaneko also has his normal Mothman going. One thing I always love to see is how artists depict themselves as a little sketch. The ones that come to mind usually are Yasuhiro Naitao and Hiromu Arakawa, the creators of Trigun and Fullmetal Alchemist respectively. These little sketches are always so goofy looking, and it's really cool to be able to add Kaneko to that list. After that is a bunch of art made for various Megami Tensei novels, all of which I have never seen before. This one shot of Satan from SMT2 looks like a cell from a lost Megaten anime that I really wish existed. Ending all of this off is a series of sketches and rough drafts for various things throughout the featured games. Alternate comp and gump designs, a breakdown of all of the emblems in the franchise, a number of character sketches, and even rejected designs. Did you know that Beth from Shin Megami Tensei 2 was green at one point? While I prefer the blue outfit we ended up with, it's almost mesmerizing to see her embrace the Irish. And with that, we come to the end of Digital Devil Apocalypse, an often overlooked art book within Kazuma Kaneko's library of work that was well worth the $25 I paid for. If you're ever able to find a copy of this book for a good price, don't pass it up. It's not the most comprehensive Atlus art book, but it's definitely the one that covers the most ground. There is plenty of stuff in here that I didn't show or touch on, so you should seriously look into it if you are at all interested. Of course, if you enjoyed this little overview, why not leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of any future uploads. Also, check out my Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can get early access to my videos a day before the public. Special thanks to DJ Translations for translating the entirety of Pandemonium, as well as UAman on, and I'm not kidding, ehentai.org for the digital scans. It was the only place I could find a complete set of this book. I am not putting a link to it in the description below. I don't want to find out how YouTube's gonna feel about linking to a site primarily used for porn. Besides, I already gave you enough information. You should be able to find it on your own. Before we get out of here, I want to leave you with what I think is the coolest piece of art in this entire book, and something we could only dream of getting today. A double-page spread of Shin Megami Tensei, Devil Summoner, and Persona characters hanging out, chatting, and having fun. Truly, this is what the entire Atlus fandom should strive for. Instead, we get a bunch of dumb Twitter arguments.